Bless your sweet heart. Welcome to the Missouri Hills and Aideen's tattoo. We continue with the stories of Aideen's relationship with Morris. Padding into her kitchen, Aideen struck a match to the gas burner and reheated her coffee. Unbidden, her grandmother's shrill voice echoed in her mind. "You are not easy to love, Aideen. You spent way too much time in the sun. You are freckled. Men like their women petite. You are tall. Your arms and legs dangle about you. You look like an octopus." Aideen allowed herself the luxury of picturing her grandmother with pointy ears, two horns, and a forked tail. Shyly, she raised her hand to cup a full breast and felt a shiver go through her body. If she married Morris, would he touch her like this? Of course he would. What would it feel like to have a man touch her? Morris didn't seem to mind her freckles or her dangly arms and legs. Wouldn't it be just fine to let him hold her in the dark, where he couldn't see the forbidden artwork, where she couldn't see him? Would it be fair to him if she let him love her while picturing Lassiter? Closing her eyes, she imagined Morris's pudgy hands caressing her. Discomfort, drat it! All she felt was discomfort. Grandmother had warned her about lascivious thoughts. Aideen looked around as if expecting her to appear. "You are dead," she said firmly. As if in punctuation of her words, the phone rang, 2 shorts and a long. Aideen's brown hair stood on end. It was just about this time yesterday Morris called. For long moments she stared at the frightening device hanging on the wall. The telephone leered back, daring her to answer. Disturbing the buffalo who had been resting, it repeated 2 shorts and 1 long. She picked up the earpiece. "Hello, my little honey bunny." Honey bunny. She removed the earpiece from its place on her head and looked at it as if it was a foreign object. Replacing it near her ear once more, she said, "Hello." "Aideen, my sweet, are you okay?" I know you are overcome with joy." "Morris? Who else, sweetums?" Aideen's stomach threatened to return all of her coffee in one lump sum. "I know this is going to be a very big disappointment, but we will not be able to see each other for a while." Aideen leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. Her stomach began to settle. "I'm sorry," she said weakly. Me too, but I've just found out that my favorite and very wealthy aunt is quite ill, and her other nieces and nephews are swarming about her like buzzards. Can you believe some people? I must go to Virginia and relieve her of their annoying presence." "When you get back, we need to talk," Aideen was able to squeak out. "Oh, I agree, my love. We have a wedding to plan." About the wedding, I can't." "Yes, I know, dearest," Morris soothed. "I'm just as anxious as you are. But by all that's holy in heaven, I will see justice done for my dear, dear aunt." "But you don't understand. I can't." "Try to contain yourself, my love. I will return as soon as possible. In the meantime, Mother is making arrangements for a bridal party. Think about who you want to invite until I return." Good morn. Parting is such sweet sorrow that I will say good morn until it be morrow. Aideen savagely slammed the earpiece into its carriage, at the same time hitting the side of her head with the palm of her hand. She ignored the awakened buffalo as she stomped a path to her on her kitchen floor. She could never again enjoy Shakespeare's lovely tragedy. She could never again read it to enthralled students. Morris was a block-headed ass, and he had forever ruined Juliet's beautiful farewell speech to Romeo. Slowly she became aware of Charlie's whine, then remembered she had let him out before taking her bath. She opened the door to the exuberant canine, welcoming a distraction from her disturbing thoughts. "Welcome, old friend." She painfully bent to accept his sloppy kisses before going back to the icebox. She found some leftover beef stew in the cool interior and dished out some for Charlie's breakfast. Good Lord. A new thought invaded her mind. Morse would want children. She wanted children. Aideen got down on her knees and took her dog's head in her hands. "Oh, Charlie, he won't stop at feeling my mammary glands. He will want to copulate with me." Charlie rewarded her with a doggy kiss and looked at her as though saying, "So what are you going to do?" More from the Missouri hills and Aideen's tattoo. Aideen meets her true love, but not in person. "A good day to you, Addie," Emmylou chirped. Aideen donned her glasses, which hung from a chain around her neck, and swallowed the reprimand that always begged to be heard anyone called her by that name. Then she remembered why she felt that way. Her grandmother didn't approve of nicknames. Aideen smiled and silently thanked the other woman. "Good day, Emmylou." Niceties having been observed, Emmylou said, "Happy birthday. I ain't got no cake, but I'll fix you a cold drink." Aideen smiled. How had her neighbor found out it was her birthday? Whispers she had heard from townspeople claimed Emmy had second sight. She was a mystery. Aideen was fond of her neighbor, but didn't feel like indulging in a prolonged conversation with her. Her head had calmed, and she had been able to eat lunch, but she really wanted was to be alone. She waved her fan furiously. "I don't know, it's a little warm for a walk." Emmylou's eyes grew wide, and her hands clasped together over her heart. "Oh, my goodness. Addie, what's that on your finger?" Aideen let the fan fall to her lap and clasped her hands, not sure why she was wearing that dratted ring. She moved her hand and watched the sparks fly from the diamond. It was spectacular, and she was a hopeless romantic. In a flurry of motion, Emmylou bounced up the porch steps and grabbed Aideen's hand. "Oh, Addie, I knew there was a reason I had to talk to you." Her expression turned to a look of cunning. The transformed female took the book from Aideen and pulled her to her feet. "You gotta come with me, Addie. I've got something for you gotta see. Now." Emmylou's eyes spoke of urgency. This was no time to argue with the determined woman. Aideen sighed and stepped from the porch. Emmylou's faded magic house was nearby. People came from miles around to get a glimpse of the mansion, so bizarre and out of place in the northwest Missouri hills. The structure resembled the belle of the ball, whose dress had become faded and worn. Neglected for many years, weeds and small trees grew near the foundation, obscuring the classic lines of the once grand Greek-style home. Proud upper and lower-level verandas wrapped around the front facade, complete with impressive Ionic columns. It had been built, like many of the homes in the old antebellum South, with a separate structure for the kitchen. Emmylou had made the detached kitchen into her home. So why was she leading Aideen toward the front veranda? Buckhorns and weeds grabbed at Aideen's skirt. Annoying dust swirled at her feet and dulled her carefully polished shoes. She damned the prevailing drought and dust as they approached the uninhabited relic. "Be careful," Emmylou warned when she stepped onto the porch. "The boards are getting a little weak here and there." She smiled conspiratorially and repeated, "Come look and see." It was a bright sunlit day. Heavy drapes covered the windows, making stepping inside feel like being swallowed in the darkness of a cave. The air was slightly cooler than outside, but rank with a smell of dampness, decay, and animal feces. Charlie wagged his tail, leaving doggy tracks on the dusty floor as he sniffed interesting odors. "We'll wait for a spell, till we can make things out," Emmylou said. "You may want to take those fool glasses off so's you can see." Aideen let the glasses dangle on their chain. That woman knows she needed glasses. They stood in the foyer with a circular stairway soaring 2 stories on each end. Aideen glanced down at a dingy white marble floor that extended along a dark hallway between the staircases. Slowly, Aideen's eyes adjusted to the dim light. Emmylou directed her attention to the left side of the foyer. A life-size portrait began to take shape. The picture called to her, demanding her attention. "Lassiter?" "Did you hear me, Addie?" Emmylou said impatiently. She repeated the words slowly, carefully. "I said he sure is something." Aideen shook her head in an effort to clear it. The painting took her breath. Her heart nearly stopped beating. She looked up at the handsome, rugged face of the young man who had lived in her dreams for most of her life. His blue-gray eyes contrasted beautifully with his olive complexion and jet-black hair. She forgot to breathe and put both hands to her chest, hoping the gesture would jump-start her dormant heart. The man was dressed in fringed buckskin that did nothing to detract from his athletic body. Complementing the buckskin were leather boots that reached his knees. He was leaning nonchalantly against a giant oak tree, one knee bent, and his foot resting behind him on the trunk. Both hands were on the long barrel of a flintlock rifle. A large dog sat at his feet and gazed lovingly at him. Aideen's hands went to the place on her body that was most dear to her, lying hid beneath her blouse. Her tattoo was a line drawing. This picture was in full color, but the face was the same. It was a face that lived in her dreams. The eyes looked into hers. "I knowed it. I knowed you would like it." Emmylou danced around Aideen, sending up puffs of dust with every step. Not taking her eyes from the painting, Aideen asked, "Who is that?" "That's my brother Ransom," Emmylou said proudly. "It's a self-portrait, you know. It's been in the barn for years now. You're the onliest one I've showed it to since I hired the Peterson boy to move it to the house." She stopped her dance and drew a circle in the dusty floor with the toe of her shoe. "I reckon it's been in the barn all these years just waiting for you." "Waiting for me? I reckon so. That's what the voices told me anyhow." Voices? She would think about that later. And all the time Aideen had lived next door, she never saw a man around the house. She vaguely remembered references to a brother. "How long has he been gone?" Emmylou crunched her face and scratched her head. "Lord, Lord, I think it's been about 20 years now." Aideen lost all track of time. She was still staring at the portrait when Emmylou tugged her on her arm and pulled her down the hall toward the back of the house.